κανένα και μετά λοιπόν το όλο που πετάει ήταν μόνο σκούπα.
We are waiting for Mr. Menelau, and we will start soon.
You're the one who with my papa. You're the one.
Ενώ περιμένουμε να σας ευχαριστήσω όλους για την παρουσία σας σε αυτή τη συνάντηση απόψε, όπου θα μιλήσουμε για ένα θέμα πολύ σημαντικό για την κοινότητα μας και για τα παιδιά μας. Πρώτα θα μιλήσουν τα τρία μέλη του πάνελ μας και μετά θα καλέσουμε όσους από εσάς θέλουν να κάνουν ερωτήσεις ή εισηγήσεις να μιλήσουν. Με τη σειρά. I welcome Mr. Nami. Thank you very much, Mr. Nami, for honoring us with your presence. Mr. George Jordanus, thank you very much. Mr. Menelau has just arrived. Welcome, Mr. Menelau. Please have your seat. The speakers, please have in mind to speak to the microphone of Sigma TV, who are here to cover our event. Now, let's start. We call the chairman of the club Kormakitis, Mr. Cyprus Maronite, to come for his welcome speech. Mr. Cyprus will speak in Greek and I will be reading the translation.
Αξιότιμοι προσκεκλημένοι, αγαπητοί φίλοι και μέλη της Μαρονιτικής Κοινότητας. Κυρίες και κύριοι, με ιδιαίτερη συγκίνηση και αίσθηση ευθύνης σας καλωσορίζω από μέρους του Σωματείου Κορμακίτης στη σημερινή μας εκδήλωση. Μια εκδήλωση που οργανώνεται σε συνεργασία με το Σύνδεσμο Μαρονιτών Κύπρου και που έχει ως σκοπό να ανοίξει ένα ουσιαστικό, συνεχιζόμενο και γόνιμο διάλογο για το μέλλον της κοινότητας της πατρίδας μας. Βρισκόμαστε εδώ στο καθεδρικό ναό της Παναγίας των Χαρίτων, την Μαρονίτικη Εκκλησία, στην πύλη Πάφου που μετά από τα τραγικά γεγονότα του 1974 στέγασε την 100% προσιλική μαρονιτική κοινότητα. Σήμερα, 51 χρόνια μετά, προσπαθούν η Εκκλησία και η Σωματεία με λιγοστούς πιστούς και θαμώνες να κρατούν στη ζωή. Το θέμα της σημερινής μας συνάντησης, κοινότητα Μαρονιτών Κύπρου. Ποιες οι προοπτικές σε περίπτωση λύσης του κυπριακού προβλήματος και ποιες σε περίπτωση παρατεταμένης μη λύσης. δεν είναι απλώς επίπεδο. Είναι υπαρξιακό, είναι πραγματικό. Αγγίζει τις καρδιές της ταυτότητάς μας, της προϊστορίας μας, της επιβίωσης μας και κυρίως το αύριο των παιδιών μας.
Translation in English. Honored guests, dear members of our Maronite community, ladies and gentlemen, it is with great emotion and a deep sense of responsibility that I welcome you on behalf
of the Kormakitis Club to today's event, an event co-organized with the Association of Maronite Scientists of Cyprus, aiming to open a meaningful and fruitful dialogue on the future of the Maronite community in our homeland. The theme of our meeting today, the Maronite community of Cyprus, what are the prospects in the event of a solution to the Cyprus problem, and what are they in the case of a prolonged non-solution, is not merely timely, it is existential. It touches the heart of our identity, our history, our daily lives, and most importantly, the future of our children.
Το σωματείο μας, ο Κορμακίτης, ιδρύθηκε με κύριο στόχο να διατηρήσει και να ενισχύσει τη μνήμη, την ταυτότητα και τη ζωντάνια του χωριού μας, αλλά και γενικότερα των μαρονίτικων χωριών. Αγωνιζόμαστε με επιμονή, με ράκη και πείσμα για να κρατήσουμε ζωντανή τη γλώσσα μας, τα έθιμά μας, τη λειτουργική μας παράδοση και φυσικά τη φυσική μας παρουσία στους ιστορικούς τόπους μας, στον Κορμακίτη, την Καφτάσια, την Αγία Μαρίνα και τον Ασώματο.
Our association, Kormakitis, was founded with the primary aim of preserving and strengthening the memory, identity, and vitality of our village, and more broadly of the Maronite villages. We strive with persistence and dedication to keep our language, our customs, our liturgical tradition alive, and of course, our physical presence in our historical places, Kormakitis, Karpasha, Agia Marina, and Antonis.
Σε μια εποχή που η μαρονιτή κοινότητα δοκιμάζεται από την δημογραφική συρρήγνωση, από την αποξένωση από τις ρίζες και την αβεβαιότητα, προκαλεί η μη επίλυση του Κυπριακού, ο ρόλος οργανώσεων όπως το δικό μας καθίσταται ακόμα πιο κρίσιμος. Προσπαθούμε μέσα από δράσεις, εκδηλώσεις, υποδομές και συνεργασίες, όπως σήμερα, να ενισχύσουμε τις διέστηση του ανήκει και να προσφέρουμε πρακτική στήριξη στην επανεκατοίκηση και ανάπτυξη των χωριών μας.
In a time when the Maronite community is being tested by demographic decline, detachment from our roots, and the uncertainty caused by the unresolved Cyprus issue, the role of organizations such as ours becomes even more crucial. Through actions, events, infrastructure, and partnerships such as today's, we work to strengthen the sense of belonging and provide practical support for the repopulation and development of our villages.
Γνωρίζουμε πολύ καλά πως το μέλλον της κοινότητάς μας εξαρτάται άμεσα από τις εξελίξεις στο Κυπριακό. Σε περίπτωση λύσης, η κοινότητά μας θα έχει ενδεχομένως νέες ευκαιρίες για επιστροφή, για πολιτιστική και κοινωνική ανάκαμψη και κατοχύρωση δικαιωμάτων. Αλλά αυτό δεν θα ερχόταν, θα απαιτήσει σχέδιο, φωνή, διεκδικητικότητα και συμμετοχή.
We are fully aware that the future of our community depends directly on developments in the Cyprus issue. In the event of a solution, our community may have new opportunities for return, for cultural and social revival, for the securing of our rights. But this will not happen automatically. It will require planning, voice, and participation.
Από την άλλη, σε περίπτωση παρατεταμένης μη λύσης, καλούμαστε να χαράξουμε στρατηγικές επιβίωσης. Να βρούμε τρόπους για να παραμείνουμε παρόντες, ενεργοί, δημιουργικοί, ζωντανοί. να μην αφήσουμε την ελπίδα να ξεπρογιάσει ούτε την ταυτότητά μας.
On the other hand, in the case of a prolonged non-solution, we are called to forge survival strategies, to find ways to remain present, active and creative, not to let hope fade, nor let our identity be forgotten.
Η μαρονιτική κοινότητα της Κύπρου έχει ιστορία αιώνων. Επιβίωσε σε δύσκολους καιρούς και θα επιβιώσει και τώρα. Φτάνει να μείνουμε ενωμένοι, οργανωμένοι και ρομανιστές.
The Maronite community of Cyprus has centuries of history. It has survived through difficult times, and it will survive now as long as we remain united, organized and visionary.
Αφορμή, θα ήθελα να το αναφέρω, για να οργανωθεί αυτή η εκδήλωση σήμερα, δεν είναι μόνο η τραγική κατάσταση που η μαρονιτική κοινότητα βρίσκεται σήμερα. Είναι το γεγονός ότι ο ασώματος και η Αγία Μαρίνα από το 1974 είναι απροσπέλαστα στους κατοίκους τους. Τα σπίτια καταταχίζονται το ένα μετά το άλλο, όπου σύντομα και κυριολεκτικά θα πατήσουν επί καμένης γης.
I would like to stress that one of the reasons for tonight's event is not only the tragic situation of the Maronite community since 1974, but it is also the situation in which two of our villages are today and for a long time now, Kassapis and Agia Marina, which are inaccessible to their inhabitants.
Σας ευχαριστώ από καρδιάς που είστε εδώ σήμερα. Ευχαριστώ όλους, ιδιαίτερα τον Σύνδεσμο Μαρεδών Επιστημών για τη συνεργασία και τη συμβολή τους στη διαμόρφωση ενός σύγχρονου οράματος για την κοινότητα μας. Σας εύχομαι μια γόνιμη και δημιουργική συζήτηση.
I thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here today. I especially thank the Association of Maronite Scientists for their collaboration and their contribution in shaping a modern vision for our community. I wish you a productive and inspiring discussion. And now I call the President of the Maronite Scientists Association, Dr. Kassapis, for his speech.
Εκ μέρους του Συνδέσμου Μαρονιτών Επιστημόνων, καλωσορίζω τους ομιλητές μας και όλους εσάς που παραβρίσκεστε εδώ και είναι τιμή μας. Η απόψινή εκδήλωση σκοπό έχει να εκφράσει την αγωνία των Μαρονιτών Κύπρου για την επιβίωση της κοινότητάς τους και να συζητηθούν μέτρα που θα συμβάλλουν στην επιβίωση της με σύντομη ή μη σύντομη λύση του κυπριακού προβλήματος. Οι Μαρονίτες, γηγενείς κάτοικοι Κύπρου για τα τελευταία 1300 χρόνια, από τον 7ο αιώνα κινδυνεύουν με αφανισμό λόγω διαίρεσης της μόνης πατρίδας τους Κύπρου.
On behalf of the Association of Maronite Scholars, Maronite Scientists, I welcome our speakers and all of you who honor us with your presence. Tonight's event aims to express the deep concern of the Maronites of Cyprus regarding the survival of their community and to discuss measures that could contribute to its continuation, whether or not a solution to the Cyprus problem is reached in the near future. The Maronites, indigenous inhabitants of Cyprus, for the past 1,300 years, since the 7th century, are facing the threat of extinction due to the division of their only homeland, Cyprus.
Από τον 11ο μέχρι τον 14ο αιώνα, επί φραγκοκρατίας και ενετοκρατίας, οι Μαρονίτες είχαν πάνω από 60 χωριά. Μετά την Οθωμανική κατάκτηση το 1571 μέχρι το 1878 έμειναν μόνο 4 χωριά. κατά τη διάρκεια της Αγγλοκρατίας από το 1878 μέχρι το 1960 και κατά τη διάρκεια της Κυπριακής Δημοκρατίας από το 1960 μέχρι το 1974, οι Μαρονίτες Κύπρου προόδευσαν και αναπτύχθηκαν παρόλη την ιστορική αδικία του συντάγματος του 1960 που τους υποβίβασε σε θρησκευτική ομάδα. Αυτά τα 4 χωριά δεν είναι απλώς γεωγραφικές τοποθεσίες. Είναι σύμβολα της ταυτότητας μας, της παράδοσης μας και της συλλογικής μας ρίζας.
From the 11th to the 14th centuries, during the period of Frankish and Venetian rule, the Maronites had more than 60 villages. After the Ottoman conquest in 1571 and up to 1878, only 4 villages remained. During British rule, 1878 to 1960, and throughout the period of the Republic of Cyprus, 1960 to 1974, the Maronites of Cyprus progressed and developed despite the historical injustice of the 1960 constitution, which downgraded them to a mere religious group. These 4 villages are not just geographic locations. They are symbols of our identity, our tradition, and our collective memory.
Σήμερα, 2 από τα 4 χωριά, ο Ασώματος και η Αγία Μαρίνα, είναι στρατόπεδα του Τουρκικού στρατού με τα σπίτια κατεδαφισμένα και χωρίς ούτε έναν εκλογισμένο. Στα άλλα χωριά, το Κορμακίτη και την Καρπάσα, παρέμειναν μόνο 40 εκλογισμένοι και περίπου 350 επανεγκατασταθέντες. Αν δεν ληφθούν σύντομα επίγοντα διορθωτικά μέτρα, τα 4 μαρονίτικα χωριά δεν θα υπάρχουν και μια ιστορική κοινότητα της Κύπρου θα αφανιστεί.
Today, 2 of our 4 villages, Asomatos and Agia Marina, are Turkish military camps, with their homes demolished and not a single person remaining there. In the other 2 villages, Kormakitis and Karpasha, only 40 enclave residents remain, along with approximately 350 people who have resettled there. If urgent corrective measures are not taken soon, the 4 Maronite villages will cease to exist and a historic community of Cyprus will vanish.
Θεωρούμε ότι τα διορθωτικά μέτρα μπορούν να ληφθούν με την προϋπόθεση ότι θα υπάρχει καλή θέληση και πολιτική βούληση και από τις 2 πλευρές. Για να επιβιώσει η μαρονιτική κοινότητα με την παρούσα πολιτική κατάσταση, χρειάζεται ειδική μεταχείριση, χωρίς βέβαια να έχει υπερπρονόμια εις βάρος των άλλων Κυπρίων. Χρειάζεται η Κυπριακή Δημοκρατία να αυξήσει τα κίνητρα για επανεγκατάσταση και οι τουρκικές αρχές να επιτρέψουν την επανεγκατάσταση και να παρέχουν κατάλληλες συνθήκες για αξιοπρεπή διαβίωση.
We believe these corrective measures are feasible provided that there is goodwill and political will from both sides. For the Maronite community to survive under the current political circumstances, special treatment is needed, not privileges at the expense of other Cypriots, but fair and necessary support. The Republic of Cyprus must increase incentives for resettlement, and the Turkish authorities must allow resettlement and provide proper conditions for a dignified life.
Στα πλαίσια διαπραγμάτευσης για λύση του κυπριακού προβλήματος, ευχιόμαστε μας μία επανενωμένη Κύπρος, μέλος της Ευρωπαϊκής Ένωσης, η μαρονιτική κοινότητα να αναβαθμιστεί από θρησκευτική ομάδα σε κοινότητα με συνταγματικά κατοχυρωμένα τα δικαιώματά της. Δεν μιλούμε για τριζωνική, τρικοινοτική ομοσπονδία, αλλά για ισότιμη μεταχείριση των μελών της και μέτρα για επιβίωση της πολιτιστικής της κληρονομιάς των ηθών, εθήμων και κουλτούρας.
In the context of negotiations for a solution to the Cyprus problem, our shared hope being a reunited Cyprus within the European Union, the Maronite community should be upgraded from a religious group to a community with its rights constitutionally enshrined. We are not calling for a tri-zonal, tri-communal federation, but for equal treatment of our members and for measures that ensure the survival of our cultural heritage, our customs, and our identity.
Ο σύνδεσμος Μαρονιτών Επιστημόνων, που είναι πανμαρονιτικός και αποτελείται από απόφοιτους και επαγγελματίες από διάφορους τομείς, αγωνίζεται με σοβαρότητα και αφοσίωση για να κρατήσουμε την ταυτότητά μας ζωντανή. Η κοινότητά μας δεν πρέπει να ξεχαστεί, αλλά να συνεχίζει να γράφει το μέλλον της από όλους εμάς με όλους εμάς. Ο δρόμος μπροστά μας δεν είναι εύκολο, αλλά αγωνιζόμαστε και ελπίζουμε.
The Association of Maronite Scientists, made up of graduates and professionals from various fields, is striving with seriousness and dedication to keep our identity alive. Our community must not be forgotten. It continues to write its future through all of us. The road ahead is not easy. We struggle and we hope.
Τελειώνοντας, ελπίζω από την απόψινή εκδήλωση και με τη βοήθεια των ομιλητών μας να εξαχθούν τα κατάλληλα συμπεράσματα που θα βοηθήσουν στην επιβίωση και αναβάθμιση των μαρονιτών κήπων. Σας ευχαριστώ.
I hope that tonight's event will lead to the appropriate conclusions and proposals that will help in the survival and the advancement of the Maronites of Cyprus. Thank you. Αξιότιμοι προσκεκλημένοι, σεβαστά μέλη του πάνελ, κυρίες και κύριοι. Με ιδιαίτερη χαρά και τιμή σας καλωσορίζω στη σημερινή συζήτηση, η οποία φιλοδοξεί να ανοίξει ένα ουσιαστικό διάλογο πάνω σε ένα θέμα μεγάλης σημασίας για εμάς. Το κοινό πρόβλημα όλων των ανθρώπων της Κύπρου, το Κυπριακό. Στη σημερινή μας συζήτηση θα εστιάσουμε στα ειδικά προβλήματα της μαρονιτικής κυπριακής κοινότητας. Η κοινότητά μας, παρότι δεν αποτελεί μέρος της σύγκρουσης, έχει υποφέρει τα μέγιστα από αυτή σε τέτοιο βαθμό που βρίσκεται πλέον κυριολεκτικά στο χείλος της εξαφάνισης. Honorable guests, respected members of the panel, ladies and gentlemen, it is with great joy and honor that I welcome you to today's discussion, which aspires to open a meaningful dialogue on a matter of great importance to us all, the common issue faced by all the people of Cyprus, the Cyprus problem. In today's discussion, we will focus on the specific issues faced by the Maronite Cypriot community. Although our community is not a party to the conflict, it has suffered deeply from it to such an extent that it now stands literally on the brink of extinction. Η παρουσία σας εδώ σήμερα, τόσο των εκλεκτών ομιλητών, όσο και των αξιότιμων προσκεκλημένων και του κοινού, αναδεικνύει τη σημασία του θέματος. Υπάρχει επιτακτική ανάγκη για ανταλλαγή πληροφοριών, απόψεων, τεκμηριωμένων θέσεων και προτάσεων με σκοπό την εξέβρεση τρόπων για να βοηθηθεί η κοινότητά μας στον αγώνα της για επιβίωση. Για την επιβίωση είναι απαραίτητο οι Μαρονίτες να μπορούν να ζουν, να διακινούνται και να εργάζονται και στις δύο πλευρές της διαχωριστικής γραμμής. Μπορεί αυτό να γίνει? Αυτό είναι το θέμα της συζήτησής μας. Your presence here today of our distinguished speakers, our esteemed guests and the public highlights the importance of this issue. There is an urgent need to exchange information, opinions, well-founded positions and proposals in order to find ways to support our community in its struggle for survival. For survival, it is essential that Maronites be able to live, move and work on both sides of the dividing line. Is this possible? That is the topic of our discussion today. Εκ μέρους των δύο οργανωτών, θα ήθελα να εκφράσω τις θερμές ευχαριστίες μου προς τα μέλη του ΠΑΝΕΛ για την αποδοχή της πρόσκλησης μας και για την διάθεσή τους να μοιραστούν μαζί μας τις σκέψεις, τις εμπειρίες και τις απόψεις τους. On behalf of the organizers, I would like to express my sincere thanks to the members of the panel for accepting our invitation and for their willingness to share their thoughts, experiences and perspectives with us. Θερμά ευχαριστώ επίσης όλους εσάς για την παρουσία σας απόψε εδώ, η οποία αποδεικνύει το ειλικρινές ενδιαφέρον σας για αυτό το ιδιαίτερο θέμα που αφορά την τρίτη κοινότητα της Κύπρου. Παρόλο που η μαρονιτική κοινότητα εκπροσωπεί σήμερα λιγότερο από το 1% του πληθυσμού, η συμβολή της στην ιστορία και τον πολιτισμό του νησιού τα τελευταία σχεδόν 1500 χρόνια είναι πολύ μεγαλύτερη. I also warmly thank all of you for being here tonight. Your presence proves your genuine interest in this important matter, which concerns Cyprus's third community. Although the Maronite community today represents less than 1% of the population, its contribution to the history and culture of this island over nearly 1,500 years has been far greater. Στόχος μας είναι η σημερινή συζήτηση να αποτελέσει όχι μόνο πηγή προβληματισμού, αλλά και αφετηρία νέων ιδεών και συνεργασιών που θα στηρίξουν τις προσπάθειες της μαρονιτικής κοινότητας Κύπρου να επιβιώσει στα πατρογονικά της χωριά. Παράλληλα, να συμβάλλει και στην προσπάθεια όλων των κατοίκων της Κύπρου για την επίλυση του προβλήματος και την επίτευξη ειρήνης, προόδου και ευημερίας για όλους τους ανθρώπους του νησιού. Our goal is for today's discussion to serve not only as a source of reflection, but also as the starting point for new ideas and collaborations that will support the efforts of the Maronite Cypriot community to survive in its ancestral villages. At the same time, we hope it will contribute to the broader efforts of all the inhabitants of Cyprus to resolve the Cyprus problem and achieve peace, progress and prosperity for everyone on our island. Ας μου επιτραπεί τώρα να παρουσιάσω σε συντομία τα εκλεκτά μέλη του πάνελ μας. Ο κύριος Μενέλαος Βενελάου είναι ο Ελληνοκύπριος διαπραγματευτής στις συνομιλίες και διαπραγματεύσεις για το κύριο ζήτημα μας, το Κυπριακό. Ο κύριος Οσδίου Ταμί είναι ο πρώην τουρκοκύπριος διαπραγματευτής και σεβαστό μέλος της τουρκοκυπριακής κοινότητας. Ο Δόκτωρ Γεώργιος Ιορδάνος είναι ειδικός σε πολυπολιτισμικά κοινωνικά ζητήματα και έχει στο παρελθόν γράψει για τα δικαιώματα της μαρονιτικής κοινότητας. Allow me now to briefly introduce our distinguished members of the panel. Mr. Menelaos Menelaou is the Greek Cypriot negotiator in the talks and negotiations on our central issue, the Cyprus problem. Mr. Ozdil Mami is the former Turkish Cypriot negotiator and a respected member of the Turkish Cypriot community. Dr. George Iordanos is an expert on multicultural social issues and has previously written about the rights of the Maronite Cypriot community. Θα προχωρήσουμε τώρα με τις ομιλίες των μελών του πάνελ μας. Θα ακολουθήσουν ερωτήσεις και συζήτηση. Ξεκινάμε με την πρώτη ομιλία των μελών του πάνελ με τον κύριο Μενέλαο Μενελάου.
Καλησπέρα. Αγαπητοί διοργανωτές, πρόσωποι σωματείων, οργανώσεων, κυρία Βουλευτή, αγαπητέ πρόσωπε της Αμερικανικής Πρεσβείας, κυρίες και κύριοι αγαπητοί φίλοι, θα ήθελα καταρχήν να ευχαριστήσω για την πρόσκληση να βρίσκομαι σήμερα εδώ. Είναι για μένα μεγάλη χαρά να έχω αυτή τη δυνατότητα να μπορέσω να καταθέσω τις απόψεις μου και να υποφεληθώ από την δική σας ανατροφοδότηση. Dear co-organizers, dear co-panelists, members of the Parliament, representatives of the U.S. Embassy, representatives of organizations and political parties, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, first of all, I would like to thank you for the invitation. It is a pleasure for me to be here and to have the opportunity to share my views and to benefit from your feedback. The theme, as stated on the invitation, is the community of the Maronite Cypriots need for a particular treatment, what are the prospects for its survival in the event of a solution to the Cyprus problem and the prospects in the event of further delay for a solution. Το θέμα της σημερινής εκδήλωσης, όπως ξέρετε πάρα πολύ καλά, είναι η κοινότητα των Μαρονιτών Κυπρίων, η ανάγκη για ειδικό χειρισμό, ποιες είναι οι προοπτικές για την επιβίωση της στο ενδεχόμενο λύσης του κυπριακού προβλήματος και οι προοπτικές σε περίπτωση περαιτέρω καθυστέρησης για την επίτευξη λύσης. So let me begin with a seemingly simple and self-explanatory, but in my view critically fundamental aspect. What do we define by the term solution to the Cyprus problem? What should we provide? Επιτρέψτε μου να ξεκινήσω με ένα φαινομενικά απλό και αυτονόητο, αλλά κατά τη γνώμη μου κρίσιμα θεμελιώδες θέμα, που είναι τι αντιλαμβανόμαστε, πώς ορίζουμε τη λύση του κυπριακού προβλήματος και τι θα πρέπει αυτή η λύση να προνοεί. In my understanding, the essence of a solution to the Cyprus problem is to render this common homeland a place whose fate is going to be determined by those who are the only entitled to determine it. Its people, Greek Cypriots, Turkish Cypriots, Maronites, Armenians and Latins. Κατά τη δική μου αντίληψη, η ουσία της λύσης του κυπριακού προβλήματος είναι να μετατρέπει αυτήν την κοινή πατρίδα σε ένα μέρος, σε μια χώρα, της οποίας η μοίρα θα καθορίζεται από αυτούς οι οποίοι είναι οι μόνοι, οι οποίοι δικαιούνται να την καθορίζουν, που είναι ο λαός της, οι Ελληνοκύπροι, οι Τουρκοκύπροι, οι Μαρονίτες, οι Αρμένοι και οι Λατίνοι. Can this be done? My reply is that, drawing from the experience of past negotiations, in particular the most recent ones, the response is that it can certainly be done. Not only it can be done, but it must be done. The alternative path will not just be the continuation of the existing situation, for the simple reason that there is no existing situation, in the sense that the reality is not static, is never static. It is a constantly deteriorating state of affairs, and this is first and foremost detrimental for all the Cypriots, but in the long run also for all others involved in the Cyprus problem. Στο ερώτημα κατά πόσο αυτό είναι εφικτό, η δική μου απάντηση είναι ότι αντλώντας από την εμπειρία των προηγούμενων διαπραγματεύσεων, περισσότερων εκείνων οι οποίες έλαβαν χώρα τα πιο πρόσφατα χρόνια, η απάντηση είναι ότι ναι, μπορεί να γίνει εφικτό. Όχι μόνο μπορεί να γίνει εφικτό, αλλά πρέπει να γίνει εφικτό. Γιατί ο εναλλακτικός δρόμος δεν θα είναι απλώς η συνέχιση της υπάρχουσας κατάστασης, για τον απλό λόγο ότι δεν υπάρχει στατική υπάρχουσα κατάσταση. Είναι μια συνεχώς επιδεινούμενη κατάσταση και αυτό είναι πρώτα και κύρια επώδυνο, επιζήμιο για όλους τους Κυπρίους, αλλά μακροπρόθεσμα και για όλους τους υπόλοιπους οι οποίοι εμπλέκονται στο κυπριακό πρόβλημα. The prolongation of this situation is inevitably prolonging a state in which Cyprus will continue to be prey to perpetual geopolitical rivalries with a spillover effect within Cyprus. This is a nightmare scenario against the backdrop of the ongoing regional and international geopolitical turmoil in the unstable wider landscape. Η συνέχιση αυτής της κατάστασης αναπόφευκτα οδηγεί στη συνέχιση ενός πλαισίου εντός του οποίου η Κύπρος θα συνεχίσει να αποτελεί θύμα συνεχιζόμενων γεωπολιτικών ανταγωνισμών, οι οποίες θα επεκτείνονται και εντός της Κύπρου. Αυτό είναι ένα εφιαλτικό σενάριο, λαμβάνοντας υπόψη τις συνεχιζόμενες περιφερειακές και διεθνείς γεωπολιτικές συγκρούσεις και το ασκαθές ευρύτερο πολιτικό πεδίο. Why do I believe that it is possible to achieve a solution to the Cyprus problem, that a solution can be achieved? Because during past negotiations, it had proved possible to achieve convergences, and in those we have been involved and we had to work together with my friend Kostin during the first period that he had served as negotiator for the Turkish Cypriot side under the leadership of Mr. Mehmet. So it had proved possible to achieve convergences or to bring the issues within range of convergence on all aspects that comprise what we describe as the internal issues of the Cyprus problem. The governance, the executive, the legislature, the judiciary, the decision-making, the deadlock resolving mechanisms, the issue of effective participation along with the need to disincentivize deadlocks, an effective and viable property regime that will provide adequate remedy to dispossessed owners, the territorial readjustment, how much territory is going to be under the administration of each community, constituent state, how do we manage the economy, how do we ensure that we will be a functional state able to assume a role and to have added value in the EU context and in the framework of our volatile region. Γιατί πιστεύω ότι αυτό μπορεί να γίνει εφικτό? Διότι κατά τη διάρκεια των προηγούμενων διαπραγματεύσεων, κατά τις οποίες είχα η χαρά να συνεργαστώ πάρα πολύ στενά τότε ως μέλος εγώ της δικής μας διαπραγματευτικής ομάδας, ως ίδιος διαπραγματευτής της τουρκοκυπριακής πλευράς υπό τον κύριο Ταλάτ, αποδείχθηκε ότι μπορούμε να επιτύχουμε συγκλήσεις ή να φέρουμε τα θέματα εντός ακτίνας επίτευξης σύγκλησης για όλες τις πτυχές που αποτελούν την εσωτερική διάσταση του κυπριακού προβλήματος. τη διακυβέρνηση, την εκτελεστική εξουσία, την νομοθετική εξουσία, την δικαστική εξουσία, τη διαδικασία λήψης αποφάσεων, των τρόπων υπέρβασης αδιεξόδων, την αποτελεσματική συμμετοχή μαζί με την ανάγκη να έχουμε αποτελεσματικά αντίδοτα στο να καταλήγουμε σε αδιέξοδα, έναν αποτελεσματικό και βιώσιμο καθεστώς για τις περιουσίες, το οποίο θα παράσχει ικανοποιητική θεραπεία στους εκτοπιστέντες ιδιοκτήτες, την εδαφική αναπροσαρμογή, δηλαδή πόσον έδαφος θα βρίσκεται υπό την διοίκηση κάθε κοινότητας, πώς θα διαχειρίσουμε την οικονομία, πώς θα διασφαλίσουμε ότι θα έχουμε ένα λειτουργικό κράτος, το οποίο θα μπορεί να αναλάβει τον ρόλο του και να έχει προστιθέμενη αξία στο πλαίσιο της Ευρωπαϊκής Ένωσης, της οποίας είναι μέλος, και στο πλαίσιο της πάρα πολύ εύθραστης περιοχής στην οποία βρισκόμαστε. Hence, if these aspects have been or can be addressed, this means that what remains to be done is what can always comprise the most fundamental root cause of the issue, which is, in my view, security. In other words, what are we going to do with the obsolete system of guarantees and the issue of the withdrawal of troops? Montana, the conference that had taken place in 2017 in Montana, proved that despite different views, an accord on these aspects can also be feasible, with the necessary political will, especially on the part of those actors that naturally have a bigger share for the relevant responsibility. Συνεπώς, εάν αυτές οι εσωτερικές πτυχές έχουν ήδη αντιμετωπιστεί ή μπορούν να αντιμετωπιστούν, αυτό σημαίνει ότι αυτό που απομένει να γίνει είναι να αντιμετωπίσουμε αυτό που πάντα αποτελούσε τις πιο θεμελιώδεις πτυχές για μεσιουργές αιτίες του προβλήματος, που είναι το θέμα της ασφάλειας. Με άλλα λόγια, τι θα κάνουμε με το ξεπερασμένο σύστημα των εγγύσεων και με το θέμα της απόσυρσης των ξένων στρατευμάτων. Η διάσκεψη στο Montana το 2017 έδειξε ότι παρά τις διαφορετικές απόψεις, η επίτευξη μιας συναντήληψης είναι εφικτή και για αυτών των θεμάτων. Εξακολουθεί να υπάρχει απόσταση την οποία πρέπει να κρατήσουμε σε αυτά τα θέματα, με την αναγκαία πολιτική βούληση, ειδικά, φυσιολογικά, από μέρους εκείνων των δρόντων οι οποίοι έχουν μεγαλύτερο μέρος της ευθύνης για αυτά τα θέματα, για αυτές τις πτυχές. For all this to be converted into a tangible prospect, the first step is to get to a resumed process. Indications are that we are heading towards that end through a sequence of incremental steps. Even though we do not have a formal process of negotiations yet, we have a personal envoy of the UN Secretary General and most recently a special envoy of the European Union. High-level meetings have taken place, one in October last year in New York of the UN Secretary General with the leaders of the two communities, and one last March in Geneva with the additional participation of Greece, Turkey and the United Kingdom, while an upcoming similar meeting is going to take place in New York later this month, which we hope will not be the end of the way, but another stock-taking layover until a possible similar next meeting in autumn. Για να μετατραπούν όλα αυτά σε μια απτή προοπτική, το πρώτο βήμα είναι να φτάσουμε στο σημείο όπου θα ξαναξεκινήσει μια επίσημη διαδικασία. Οι ενδείξεις είναι ότι οδεύουμε προς αυτήν την κατεύθυνση μέσα από μια λειτουργία σταδιακών βημάτων. Παρόλο που δεν έχουμε ακόμα επίσημη διαδικασία συνομιλιών, είχαμε τον διορισμό προσωπικής απεσταλμένης του Γενικού Γραμματέα των Ηνωμένων Εθνών και πρόσφατα ειδικού απεσταλμένου της Ευρωπαϊκής Ένωσης. Έλαβαν χώρα συναντήσεις υψηλού επίπεδου, μία τον περασμένο Οκτώβριο στη Νέα Υόρκη του Γενικού Γραμματέα των Ηνωμένων Εθνών με τους ηγέτες των δύο κοινοτήτων, μία τον περασμένο Μάρτιο στη Γενέβη με την επιπρόσθετη συμμετοχή της Ελλάδας, της Τουρκίας και του Ηνωμένου Βασιλείου των Υπουργών Εξωτερικών των Κεντριών Δυνάμεων, ενώ επίκειται μια ακόμη παρόμοια συνάντηση με αυτή τη σύνθεση στη Νέα Νιόρκη αργότερα αυτόν τον μήνα, η οποία ελπίζουμε να μην αποτελέσει το τέλος του δρόμου, αλλά έναν ενδιάμεσο σταθμό μέσα από τον οποίο να προκύψουν επόμενα βήματα περιλαμβανομένης μιας επόμενης ανάλογης συνάντησης στο φθινόπωρο. This time things should be different, as we do not have the luxury to repeat another unsuccessful attack. To do so, it is imperative to approach a revived effort, not with the aim of acquiring as much as possible for our sides separately, but with the spirit of aiming for a balanced compromise through which there will be no winners and losers, but we will all be winners. The dilemma is either a united federal Cyprus in the European Union or the further consolidation of the federal clique, which is the path to catastrophe for all Cypriots. Αυτή τη φορά τα πράγματα πρέπει να είναι διαφορετικά, δεν έχουμε την πολυτέλεια να επαναλάβουμε ακόμα μια αποτυχημένη προσπάθεια. Για να γίνει αυτό, είναι απαραίτητο να αντιμετωπίσουμε μια πιθανή ανανεωμένη προσπάθεια, όχι με στόχο να επιτύχουμε ο καθένας το μεγαλύτερο μεταξύ μας οι Κύπροι, όσο το δυνατόν περισσότερα για εμάς και ενάντια στους άλλους, αλλά μέσα από ένα πνεύμα το οποίο θα στοχεύει σε έναν ισορροπημένο συμβιβασμό, μέσα από τον οποίο δεν θα υπάρχουν νικητές και ηττημένοι, αλλά θα είμαστε όλοι νικητές. Το δίλημμα είναι είτε μια ενωμένη Κύπρος μέσα στην Ευρωπαϊκή Ένωση ή η περαιτέρω εμπέδωση των τετελεσμένων που αποτελεί την οδό προς την καταστροφή για όλους τους Κυπρίους. Before I conclude, let me say a few words for the Maronite community, a thriving community and proud part of the people of Cyprus and of the history and the mosaic of Cyprus. Despite the adversities, the community is managing to maintain and to develop its roots in a part of its ancestral places of origin. Through support by the government and by the European Union, it has been possible for people to relocate, to have a school, to create a cooperation center in Kormakitis. We know that much more needs and awaits to be done, and in this regard, I would like to assure you that the expectations and demands of the community have been conveyed in the meetings we had recently with the Turkish Cypriot side. Προτού ολοκληρώσω, θα ήθελα να πω κάποια λόγια για την μαρονική κοινότητα, μια ευημερούσα κοινότητα και έναν περήφανο μέρος του λαού της Κύπρου, της ιστορίας και του μοσαϊκού της Κύπρου. Παρά τις δυσκολίες, η κοινότητα καταφέρνει να διατηρήσει και να αναπτύξει τις ρίζες της σε ένα μέρος, τουλάχιστον σε ένα μέρος των πατρογονικών αιστειών της, μέσα από την υποστήριξη της κυβέρνησης και της Ευρωπαϊκής Ένωσης. Γίνεται εφικτό για ανθρώπους οι οποίοι κατάγονται από τις κατεχόμενες περιοχές να επαναγκατασταθούν, να λειτουργήσει σχολείο, να δημιουργηθεί το κέντρο συνεργασίας στον Κορμακίτη. Γνωρίζουμε ότι υπάρχουν πολύ περισσότερα τα οποία πρέπει να γίνουν και προς αυτήν την κατεύθυνση θέλω να σας διαβεβαιώσω ότι θα συνεχίσουμε να υποστηρίζουμε τις προσπάθειες σας και να σας μεταφέρω επίσης ότι οι προσδοκίες και τα αιτήματά σας έχουν τεθεί από δικής μας πλευρά στις πρόσφατες συναντήσεις, οι οποίες έγιναν μεταξύ του Πρόεδρου της Δημοκρατίας και του ηγέτη της Τουρκοκυπριακής Δημοκρατίας. That recently there have been further demolitions of houses in Maronite villages, while requests for relocation to other Maronite villages or for the restoration of churches and for the unhindered access and the conduct of religious services are still pending. Είναι λυπηρό ότι πρόσφατα υπήρξαν κατεδαφίσεις σπιτιών σε μαρονίτικα χωριά, ενώ τα αιτήματα για επανεγκατάσταση σε άλλα μαρονίτικα χωριά, για την αποκατάσταση εκκλησιών και για την ανεμπόδιση στην πρόσβαση και την ενέργεια θρησκευτικών λειτουργιών εξακολουθούν να εκκρεμούν. All these are yet another reminder that we cannot give up the efforts, but we must redouble the efforts and do everything in our capacity to address these justified expectations. The Cyprus proverb says that the people homeland without the people is deserted. It is an existential need to do all we can to reverse the current. From the perpetuation of the division, the uprooting and the alienation, to the rerouting to our ancestral places. I want to assure you that we will do everything in our capacity in this regard, and I thank you for your attention. Όλα αυτά αποτελούν μια ακόμα υπενθύμηση ότι δεν μπορούμε να εγκαταλείψουμε την προσπάθεια, αλλά πρέπει να προπλασιάσουμε τις προσπάθειες και να κάνουμε ό,τι είναι δυνατόν για να μπορέσουμε να ανταποκριθούμε σε αυτές τις δίκαιες προσδοκίες. Μια κυπριακή λαϊκή ρίση λέει ότι ο άνθρωπος είναι ο τόπος, χωρίς τους ανθρώπους, ο τόπος είναι έρημος. Είναι υπαρξιακή ανάγκη να κάνουμε ό,τι μπορούμε για να αντιστρέψουμε την ροή των πραγμάτων από την συνέχιση της διέρεσης, του ξεριζωμού και της αποξένωσης στην επαναρρίζωση στις πατρογονικές αιστείες. Θέλω να σας βεβαιώσω ότι θα εξαντλήσουμε κάθε δυνατό περιθώριο προς αυτή την κατεύθυνση. Σας ευχαριστώ ξανά για την πρόσκληση και για την προσοχή σας.
Ευχαριστούμε τον κύριο Μενέλαο Μενελάου για την ομιλία του και περνούμε τώρα στην ομιλία του κυρίου Οσδήλ Ναμί. We thank Mr. Menelao Menelao for his speech, and we now move on to the speech by Mr. Οσδήλ Ναμί.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. I would like to start by thanking the Kormakitis Club for having me as a guest tonight among you. I think this is a very wonderful gathering, and we are going to have a lively discussion, I hope, after the speeches are over. I will keep mine very short so that we can have more time, hopefully, for a discussion period.
Καλησπέρα σε όλους σας. Ευχαριστώ το Σωματείο για την πρόσκληση. Είναι μια πολύ καλή εκδήλωση και εγώ θα μιλήσω λίγο για να μείνει χρόνο στο τέλος για μια καλή ζωντανή συζήτηση.
First, I would like to take a moment to express my profound respect to and admiration for the Maronite community of Cyprus.
Πρώτα, να εκφράσω το θαυμασμό μου για την μαρονιτική κοινότητα της Κύπρου.
Despite being a very small community, the Maronites have preserved a unique and rich identity.
Παρά το ότι είναι μια μικρή κοινότητα, οι Μαρονίτες έχουν διατηρήσει μια πλούσια ταυτότητα.
This identity blends faith, language, history, bridging East and West, in my view, in a way that enriches Cyprus.
Αυτή η ταυτότητα αναμειγνύει θρησκεία, γλώσσα και σμίγει την Ανατολή με τη Δύση και με αυτόν τον τρόπο εμπλουτίζει την Κύπρο.
Your deep-rooted presence on the island, particularly in historic villages like Kormakitis, is a testament to your resilience and dedication to your cultural and religious heritage.
Η παρουσία σας στην Κύπρο και ιδιαίτερα στο ιστορικό χωριό του Κορμακίτη είναι μια μαρτυρία στην το πείσμα σας να ανακρατήσετε την πολιτισμική σας ταυτότητα.
The community's ongoing efforts to preserve the endangered Cypriot Maronite language and maintain your liturgical traditions deserve not only our respect but our full support.
Η επιμονή της κοινότητας σας να διατηρήσει τη γλώσσα της και τη θρησκεία της αξίζει όχι μόνο το θαυμασμό μας, αλλά και την υποστήριξη μας.
In my view, in any future comprehensive settlement, it is essential that we include clear, meaningful, and enforceable provisions to protect and promote the cultural, linguistic rights of the Maronite community.
Κατά την άποψή μου, σε οποιαδήποτε μελλοντική λύση του κυπριακού προβλήματος, θα πρέπει οπωσδήποτε να συμπεριληφθούν μέτρα τα οποία θα εξασφαλίζουν την πολιτισμική και θρησκευτική ταυτότητα των Μαρονιτών της Κύπρου.
I personally and wholeheartedly have done before and still do support the inclusion of all necessary measures to ensure Maronites thrive in their ancestral villages and communities.
Προσωπικά στο παρελθόν και συνεχίζω και τώρα να κάνω ό,τι είναι δυνατόν για να σιγουρέψω, για να βοηθήσω τους Μαρονίτες να ζουν στα παραδοσιακά χωριά τους.
I think this will ensure that they will be able to contribute to the cultural fabric of a reunified Cyprus.
Νομίζω ότι αυτό θα βοηθήσει στο πολιτισμικό πλέγμα της Κύπρου.
A truly inclusive and fair solution must celebrate and safeguard the diversity that defines our island, and the Maronites are an inseparable part of that vision.
Μία σωστή λύση θα πρέπει να σιγουρεύσει ότι όλες οι κοινότητες της Κύπρου διατηρούν την ταυτότητα τους και η μαρονιτική κοινότητα είναι έναν αναπόσπαστο μέρος της κυπριακής κοινωνίας.
In past attempts of reaching a comprehensive settlement that I was a part of during Talat Christofias period with Melenaus, and later between Akunji and Anastasiadis, we actually tried very hard to deliver on this promise.
Στις προηγούμενες συζητήσεις όπου εγώ υπηρέτησα στον Ταλάτ Χριστόφια και μετά με τον Ακιντζή, προσπαθήσαμε να βοηθήσουμε για την μαρονιτική κοινότητα.
Like having special measures for re-return to ancestral villages and the exercise of religious rights.
Όπως παραδείγματος χάρη, μέτρα για την επιστροφή και επανεγκατάσταση στα παραδοσιακά χωριά και στην άσκηση των θρησκευτικών τους δικαιωμάτων.
Unfortunately, we are not there yet, and the comprehensive settlement is still eluding us.
Δυστυχώς δεν φτάσαμε εκεί ακόμη και μια ολική λύση είναι ακόμη μακριά από μας.
Therefore, right now, we need, in my view, to focus on measures that can assist the Maronite community under current difficult circumstances.
Επομένως, τώρα κατά τη γνώμη μου, πρέπει να επικεντρωθούμε σε ειδικά μέτρα τα οποία να βοηθήσουν την μαρονιτική κοινότητα στις συνθήκες που βρισκόμαστε τώρα.
Like allowing easier access to their churches, holding religious services, and achieving restorations of their villages and the religious sites.
Όπως να αφήσουμε πιο εύκολη πρόσβαση στις εκκλησίες τους και επίσης στην restoration, την αποκατάσταση των εκκλησιών τους και των θρησκευτικών τους μνημείων.
At the same time, like my dear friend Melenaus has underlined, at the same time, we must not lose our focus on the main goal, which is a comprehensive settlement.
Την ίδια στιγμή, όπως και ο φίλος του Μενέλαος έχει πει, δεν πρέπει να χάσουμε την εστίαση μας στον κύριο στόχο που είναι μια ολική λύση του κυπριακού προβλήματος.
It is a fact that rejection of the Annan Plan and the collapse of the Cyprus Conference at Kramontana has done a huge damage.
Είναι γεγονός ότι η απόρριψη του σχεδίου ΑΝΑ, όπως και η κατάρρευση των συνομιλιών του Κάμου ΑΝΑ, έχουν προκαλέσει τεράστια ζημιά.
The confidence of people that we can ever reach a solution is at a historic low.
Η εμπιστοσύνη του κόσμου ότι μπορούμε να φτάσουμε σε μια συμφωνία έχει φτάσει σε έναν ιστορικό χαμηλό.
There is now, on both sides of the island, a very big problem, and that problem is apathy.
Υπάρχει τώρα και στις δύο πλευρές του νησιού ένα μεγάλο πρόβλημα και αυτό είναι η απάθεια.
Yet, I still believe we will have another golden opportunity soon.
Κι όμως, ακόμη πιστεύω ότι θα έχουμε ακόμη μια χρυσή ευκαιρία σύντομα.
There is some work which is being done right now. However, I think the main push will come after the presidential elections in the north in October.
Υπάρχει κάποια εργασία που γίνεται τώρα, αλλά όμως εγώ πιστεύω ότι η κύρια όθηση θα έρθει μετά από τις προεδρικές εκλογές τον Οκτώβριο.
My sincere hope is that the Turkish Cypriot voters will elect a new leader who will once again, like Atinci, like Talat, push very strongly for a final solution.
Η ειλικρινής μου ελπίδα είναι ότι οι Τουρκοκύπροι θα εκλέξουν έναν νέο πρόεδρο, όπως ήταν ο Ακιντζή, όπως ήταν ο Αλή Ταλάτ, οι οποίοι θα προσπαθήσουν να βρουν μια λύση.
However, there is an important point here, and with that I will finish my speech. We must all realize that this attempt will be one final push.
Πάντως υπάρχει κάτι το σημαντικό εδώ και εδώ θα τελειώσω την ομιλία μου. Πρέπει να καταλάβουμε ότι αυτή η προσπάθεια τώρα είναι η τελική όθηση.
Therefore, we will have to approach it in a different way, a way different than past efforts.
Επομένως, πρέπει να προσεγγίσουμε αυτή την προσπάθεια με έναν διαφορετικό τρόπο, διαφορετικά από τις προηγούμενες προσπάθειες μας.
We will have to answer the question why we failed in Tramontana.
Πρέπει να απαντήσουμε το ερώτημα γιατί αποτύχαμε στο Κραν Μοντανά.
When the solution was on the table, everything was there, and we had a Turkish Cypriot leader supported by Turkey who wanted to finish it, and we still couldn't. We have to answer the question why.
Όταν είχαμε τη λύση στο τραπέζι, όταν είχαμε ένα τουρκοκύπριο ηγέτη ο οποίος υποστήριζε τη λύση και τον στήριζε η Τουρκία, πρέπει να απαντήσουμε το ερώτημα γιατί υπήρξε η αποτυχία.
In my view, before going into the substance of negotiations, the new Turkish Cypriot leader will ask this question.
Κατά τη γνώμη μου, πριν αρχίσουμε τις επόμενες συνομιλίες, ο νέος τουρκοκύπριος ηγέτης θα κάνει ακριβώς αυτή την ερώτηση.
And he will demand some predetermined rules before going into comprehensive talks.
Και θα απαιτήσει σαν μερικά προκαθορισμένους κανόνες πριν να προχωρήσει με συνομιλίες.
This time, it is not going to be an open-ended negotiations. There will have to be a time limit.
Αυτή τη φορά δεν θα είναι μία συνομιλία χωρίς τέλος. Θα πρέπει να υπάρχει ένα χρονικό τέλος στις συνομιλίες.
This time, there will have to be some kind of an arbitration.
Αυτή τη φορά πρέπει να υπάρξει κάποιο είδος διαιτησίας.
And this time, there will have to be concrete consequences on the side that says no at the referendum.
Και αυτή τη φορά θα πρέπει να υπάρξουν συνέπειες πάνω στην πλευρά που θα πει όχι σε κάποιο referendum.
Only when we design the new negotiation process in this manner will we be able to finish the new round of talks in a successful manner.
Μόνο όταν θα έχουμε αυτόν τον τρόπο θα έχουμε τη δυνατότητα να πετύχουμε να καταλήξουμε σε μια συμφωνία.
So my message to you would be ready for this, and when the time comes, support your leadership to show the political courage to enter into such a time-limited, result-oriented new effort, because there is no other way.
Γι' αυτό το μήνυμα μου προς εσάς είναι να υποστηρίξετε τον ηγέτη σας, να μπει στις συνομιλίες με τη διάθεση να δεχτεί την επιδιαιτησία για τον περιορισμό του χρόνου, ούτως ώστε να φτάσουμε σε μια λύση.
And only with a comprehensive settlement, we will be able to safeguard the future of our communities. And it is not only the Maronite community, but I believe all communities in Cyprus facing a danger for their very survival. And only a reunited Cyprus within the European Union can safeguard our future and the future of our children. Thank you very much.
Και είναι μόνο με μια νολική λύση που όλες οι κοινότητες της Κύπρου θα έχουν ελπίδα για το μέλλον. Δεν είναι μόνο η μαρονική κοινότητα, αλλά είναι όλες οι κοινότητες που χρειάζονται μια λύση, μια ενωμένη Κύπρο, για να έχουν την δυνατότητα να επιβιώσουν στο μέλλον. Σας ευχαριστώ πολύ.
Ευχαριστούμε τον κύριο Οσδήλ Ναμή για την ομιλία του και περνάμε τώρα στην ομιλία του Δόκτωρα Γεωργίου Ιορδάνους. We thank Mr. Οσδήλ Ναμή for his speech, and we now
turn to the speech by Dr. Georgios Iordanou.
I will speak in English, and there is a Greek translation on the display in order not to take too much of the time and leave space for discussion afterwards. So, dear friends, I feel a certain discomfort in speaking about the claims of a community to which I do not belong. I must therefore begin with an apology. You are the ones best placed to know what is right, necessary, and just for yourselves and your community. I will simply offer a reflection on what I would advocate for if I was in that position. My brief intervention this evening is structured around 3 core parameters, which I shall outline and then develop further. First, the preservation of collective identities requires investment. Without conscious and targeted support, a community's identity is eroded and gradually absorbed by the dominant national group, in this case the Greek Cypriots. Second, the state is not neutral. The idea that the state can operate as a neutral arbiter, blind to the identity of its citizens, is a fiction. In practice, the state produces and introduces the identity of the majority through its institutions, the schools, the university, the military, the civil service, and so on. Third, a community's capacity to make claims is contingent upon how it is categorized. The rights a community may claim differ depending on whether it is recognized as national, religious, or migratory in character. So, let us retain these 3 points. Identity preservation requires investment, the state is not neutral, and a group's classification defines its entitlements. Let's start with the first parameter. The survival of a collective identity is neither automatic nor assured. It is not guaranteed by good intentions nor by expressions of admiration from the wider society. What is required is something far more substantial: sustained material support, long-term strategy, and targeted investment. By investment, I refer to a comprehensive policy commitment that enables a community to transmit its identity across generations. This includes investment in language, history, cultural production, as well as in the social structures that foster cohesion. The schools, parishes, associations, gathering spaces, and local governments. This is particularly urgent in the case of the Maronite community, as it is a community with centuries of historical continuity on the island, one that possesses a distinct linguistic identity, which is recognized by UNESCO as part of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity. It is also a community that maintains its historical ties with Lebanon, just as other communities in Cyprus maintain ties with Greece or Turkey. The Maronite community is therefore not a relic of the past, it is a community of the present that is striving for its future. The assimilation of the Maronites into the dominant Greek Cypriot majority is not a hypothetical risk. It's an ongoing reality. Children of the community attend schools in which their history and language are either absent or tokenistically represented. It is therefore evident that state investment in the preservation of the community's identity is an urgent necessity. Such investment must be multi-dimensional. First, in history, not with brief two-paragraph references, but through the systematic inclusion of Maronite history and historiography in official curricula, not filtered through the Greek Cypriot national narrative, but as understood and experienced by the community itself, by it. Second, in culture. Institutional support for festivals, cultural centers, publications, research projects, documentaries, ethnographic reportings, digitalization of archives, and all forms of cultural documentation. Third, in language, not merely through afternoon classes, but via structured primary and secondary education programs with certification, teacher trainings, and tailored textbooks. Here we come to the second parameter. Now, the state is not neutral. Despite the insistence of political liberalism on the theoretical neutrality of the state vis-à-vis the identities of its citizens, historical experience demonstrates the contrary. The state is not a blank canvas. It is a mechanism that carries entrenched narratives, established hierarchies, and specific ethno-political preferences. In practice, the state reproduces, reinforces, and protects the identity of the majority, not necessarily out of malice, but because it operates through a dominant national narrative that dictates the priorities of public policy. In the case of the Republic of Cyprus, this narrative inevitably is Greek-centric. The state functions in Greek, teaches the history of Greek Cypriot, institutionalizes its national history, the holidays, adopts its symbols, and reproduces its cultural norms. Public education exemplifies this bias most clearly. From primary school to high school, the curriculum revolves almost exclusively around the history of achievement and sufferings of the Greek Cypriot population. Maronites, when mentioned, are portrayed through the lens of the majority, denied the right to self-representation. This becomes even more critical when we consider the shape of the state after the political settlement. In a united Cyprus, the state will be bicommune. Its constitutional architecture will recognize two national communities, Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots, as the only constitutional partners of the new state. The constitution, institutions, rights, and obligations will flow from this bicommunal foundation. Unless a special status is secured, the Maronite community risks becoming constitutionally invisible within the new framework. Let me be clear though. I'm not proposing a change to the position of negotiations. I do not question the model of bilateral bicommunal federation, nor do I consider any alternative to be realistic. The federal model, especially after the last round of negotiations which brought us closer to a solution than ever, is the only viable route to unification. Those who now speak of new solution models are, whether knowingly or not, perpetuating the status quo that is anything but static. Yet, the acceptance of a bicommunal federation does not and should not entail the abandonment of the other historical principles of Cyprus. Within the new polity, the Maronite community can and must claim rights to collective self-determination, cultural preservation, and institutional presence. This is not a threat to the bi-communal principle. It is an affirmation of Cyprus's multicultural character and the pluralism that sustains it. So, now we go on to the third and perhaps most critical parameter. The classification of a community determines the scope and nature of its claims. Permit me to speak with utmost honesty. In the case of the Maronite community, the issue is institutional and to a significant extent constitutional. Under the Constitution, the community is not recognized as a national group, but rather as a religious one. And this changes everything. The term national community, or more precisely, national in the socio-political sense, which is not easily translatable to Greek, as the word ethnos is used for both political and ethno-cultural formations. But for the purpose of this discussion, I use the term national community to refer to social and cultural collectives possessing historical continuity, collective identity, and cultural self-awareness attached to Cyprus. I think this defines the Maronite community. Classifying the Maronites as a religious group has serious and immediate consequences in that the community is not granted collective political rights. It has no say in the education of its children, no role in shaping cultural policy, no autonomous governance structures, and no parliamentary representation as an institutional partner of the state, only a non-legislative representative. Thus, a community with centuries of presence and distinct linguistic and cultural identity and a substantial contribution to Cyprus's historic and multicultural fabric ends up being politically invisible. If I were in your case, and I say this with humility and respect, I would advocate for a reclassification of the community. Not merely for symbolic reasons, but because the category in which a community is placed defines the right to which it is entitled. I would seek either formal recognition as national community or, at the very least, recognition as a cultural collective with institutional autonomy and competences. Let me reiterate. I'm not proposing the establishment of a third constitutional entity within the federation, nor a radical federation of the bi-communal design. But that does not preclude the community from seeking institutional guarantees for self-government. One rational and realistic, I think, proposition would be to cluster the Maronite villages into a single administrative unit with a jointly elected board. This local assembly or council could be vested with regulatory authority in specific domains: education, cultural affairs, land use, management of public resources, participation in development projects, and there are more. Alternatively, if politically feasible, the community could seek inclusion within a special status framework under the Greek Cypriot community with provisions safeguarding its cultural and linguistic autonomy. If none of the above is achievable, then the argument of historical restitution remains. The Maronite community was treated as a lesser child of the Republic. It was not afforded the opportunities its historical role merited. It therefore holds the moral and political right to demand restorative justice. So most of the proposals I briefly outlined pertain to the status of the Maronite community in the context of a comprehensive settlement to the Cyprus problem. Many of us, unfortunately myself included at times, harbor pessimism regarding the likelihood of reaching such a settlement, despite the fact that the last round of negotiations brought the two sides within an inch of an agreement. Yet every day that passes is another day in which the Maronite community is further exposed to the forces of assimilation. And now it's important to underline that not all measures require constitutional overthrow. Indeed, certain actions are both feasible now and long overdue. A few months ago, Kostas Konstantinou is here, of the University of Cyprus, and Metechata issued a policy brief by Trio, in which they called for the return of the Maronite villages of Agia Marina and Asomatos. This was previously agreed as a confidence-building measure, yet remains unimplemented. As they argue, we should not be waiting for full and all-inclusive peace packages, but rather proceed with measures that improve the lives of the people in Cyprus, including the Maronites, in the present and in anticipation of a solution. At the same time, the Maronite community, widely respected and with considerable social and political capital, should move beyond symbolic recognition and begin articulating concrete demands for participation in decisions that affect its cultural survival. These include, among others, the comprehensive inclusion of the community's history in school curricula, as well as broader policies aimed at safeguarding the cultural continuity of the Maronites in Cyprus. Dear friends, the unification may seem a distant prospect to us all, but the ingredients exist, and should the conditions align, there may be an opportunity that must not be squandered. Yet the unification must not be built on the invisibility of smaller communities. It must not come at the expense of the island's cultural diversity. It must not entrench a binary nationalism that silently erases the voices in between. In the meantime, specific steps should be taken to promote the cultural continuity of the Maronites in the here and now. In closing, let me be emphatic. I think the community does not need honorary speeches nor folkloric tributes. It needs policy, it needs rights, and the multicultural character of Cyprus must be preserved as a defining attribute of Cyprus, not treated as a deviation from the norm. Thank you so much.
Ευχαριστούμε τον Δόκτωρ Γιώργο Ιορδάνους για την ομιλία του και τώρα σε λίγο θα αρχίσουμε τις ερωτήσεις από εσάς. Παρακαλώ να είμαστε με συντάξη και να μην μιλούμε χωρίς να μας δοθεί ο λόγος. Επίσης θα γίνει πρώτα ένας γύρος ερωτήσεων όπου το κάθε άτομο θα μπορεί να κάνει μία ερώτηση και μόνο εάν όλοι όσοι θέλουν να κάνουν ερώτηση την έχουν κάνει, θα προχωρήσουν σε δεύτερο βήμα αν έχουμε χρόνο, όπου θα μπορούμε να κάνουμε και δεύτερη ερώτηση. We thank Dr. George Jordanos for his speech. We will now proceed to our questions and our discussion. We will have a first round of questions. And if we have time, we will proceed to a second round where people may speak for the second time and ask a second question. This is subject to time. We are a bit behind schedule, but it was worth it. We heard excellent speeches, and we will all leave here very enriched. Let's now proceed to the questions. Okay. Mr. Giannakis. Well, if you can speak in English, it's preferable.
Well, I want to make two statements. Two statements, and then I will proceed to a question of all of the question. The first statement is that we, Cyprus, Maronite Cyprus, we know that we cannot at this juncture ask for anything more than mere help, because we are at the stage of talking of the skeleton of the constitution, of the skeleton of the system, of the solution of the system. If it is a unitary state, we will have to see what we're going to ask after the unitary state. If it is a partition, then we should know what we should ask about partition. If it is a two-state, it's something else. That's the first thing. But I'm not discounting the discussion that's being taken place here. Very good. The second statement, so I haven't heard this. We, Maronites, rely heavily on money. Unlike the Albanians and the Russians, we have our own land. 48, 50 square miles of land belongs to the Maronites. We were a concentrated community in the 4 villages, And because of the events, we became scattered. And through the scattering, we ended up with a simulation with all consequential problems. So the return back to our lands is a must. If we don't return back to our lands, then unfortunately, and this is my own position, the community, the Catholic Maronite community in this part of the world is finished. And then I go to the question. We have from both of you that we almost reached a solution at Geneva, Grand Montana. Okay? And even the president, Mr. Kormakitis, he said that we are not bringing the Zodeka before 12, but before 1 in his solution. So, what do you think happened then when we not end up in a solution? Secondly, knowing the environment that exists in the Turkish community, which is a minority now on the other side, the impact of Turkey on the other side, and knowing what is going on here politically in this part of the island, where is your hope and where is your aspiration that we, at the end of the day, in next month, we will somehow, somewhere, reach a compromise for mutual understanding?
Well, thank you for the question. In my intervention, I didn't say I was hopeful, and that was not by mistake. What I said was, I believe there is going to be another opportunity. And I defined the structure to make that opportunity a success story. That came out of my experience from Montana. You are asking what went wrong in Montana. I think the answer was within my speech. In Montana, we didn't have a time limit, we didn't have arbitration, and we didn't have consequences on the party who leaves the table or who says no at a referendum. The solution is on the table. Almost all the details actually are hammered out. What is lacking is political courage to push through the final line. You are asking, well, will Turkey allow such a thing? My answer to you is, it will depend on a lot on the attitude of the Greek leaders. In 2004, Turkey supported unification of Cyprus and all of Cyprus to become a member of the European Union before Turkey becomes a member of the European Union. But we know what happened at the referendum. The same happened in Montana. Turkey gave us its full support. Akıncı had full support of Turkey, including on the issue of guarantees. There were some flexibilities which were there. But right now, the situation is different. The confidence is gone. They don't trust anyone anymore. So we have to seek and find a way to re-establish that confidence. That cannot be through speeches. It can only be by putting on the table some concrete new approaches and commitments so that we give the confidence that this time, if you open your hand fully, show all your cards, you will be able to finish. I believe if our politicians, I am retired, the ones in official is in power now, feel this historic responsibility, they can do it. But if they behave in other ways, then solution will once again escape from between our fingers. This is our fingers.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. My first comment is in relation to the past and what has gone wrong, and how do we ensure that this time we will not repeat unsuccessful attempts. My approach with regard to this aspect is that it can be useful and constructive. We think of the past if we approach it as an exercise through which we will draw lessons so as to ensure that this time we will not hit the same wall. It would be entirely counterproductive in my view to quarrel, to have arguments and counter-arguments with regard to whose fault it was for the attempts that have not worked in the past. There are obviously reasons, and there are different views and perspectives with regard to the cause of the lack of success. I believe that it would be more useful for each of us to think of the other's perspective so that we ensure that we take it on board when we determine the strategy and the steps that we are going to take, because eventually what would first need to be done by each of us is the part which is in our hands before we expect what the others are going to do. With regard to the more specifics, I believe that precisely within the context that I have described of drawing lessons from past experiences, we can say, we can draw the conclusion that there were elements that had not worked, that were counterproductive. And it was in fact those elements that have played a very significant role in unsuccessful attempts of the past, such as the time limit and the arbitration that was used in the 2004 method. That had not worked. It had had a detrimental effect, and we had seen that from the outcome. And we have also seen that when these were put aside in the efforts that followed and that had commenced in 2006 and have gone through two very productive periods of talks between the two sides in 2008 to 2010 and then 2015 to 2017. What had worked was that we had defined a process that was based upon the operation of the free will, the expression of the free will of the Cypriots themselves, and that is what had led to what we describe today as the key of negotiations that must be maintained, must be preserved, and on which we must build so that we can focus and cover the remaining miles. We will discuss what is most important to keep, and I believe that it has become obvious from the positions that we have expressed in today's event, is that we both see a prospect, that we both see a possibility for a revived effort, and that we both understand, we all understand, those that are present here today, that we must make full use of that prospect and exert every effort and exhaust every possibility so that it will be successful. And then we will only be able to see where we can get and if we can arrive to the desired destination after we cover the distance. Thank you.
Second question by Mr. Andreas.
Καλησπέρα σας. Συγχαρητήρια για την ωραία εκδήλωση από εσάς, τον Κορμακίτη και στο Σύνδεσμο Επιστημόνων. Θέλω να δώσω συγχαρητήρια και στους τρεις ομιλητές οι οποίοι ήταν εξαιρετικοί. Ο καθένας από την πλευρά του μας έδωσε τα φώτα του σε σημεία τα οποία κάπως ήταν άγνωστα για μας. Μας έδωσαν την ελπίδα ότι κάτι μπορεί να προέρχει από αυτές τις επικείμενες συνομιλίες. Αλλά εγώ θα ήθελα να σταθώ, εγώ κατάγομαι από τον Ασώμα. Είναι ένα χωριό το οποίο υπέφερε εξίσου, αν όχι περισσότερο, με τους κατοίκους του Κορμακίτη, κάτω του Ασωμάτου. Εμείς που ήταν εγκλωβισμένοι για χρόνια. Περάσαμε πολύ δύσκολες συνθήκες. πέρασαν χρόνια, ήταν εγκλωβισμένοι 110 τόσοι εγκλωβισμένοι κάτω από τον τουρκικό στρατό, είχαν πιαστεί και εχμάλωτοι και υποφέραμε εμείς τα παιδιά των εγκλωβισμένων και καταλήγουμε σιγά σιγά να το φέραμε στον χρόνο, μετά από 50 χρόνια, τα σπίτια μας να έχουν καταστραφεί, το 80% των σπιτιών μας να έχει κατεδαφιστεί από τον τουρκικό στρατό με τις περιπτώσεις. Κύριε Μενελάου, είχατε πει ότι ο τόπος δεν είναι οι άνθρωποι. Συμφωνώ, ο τόπος είναι οι άνθρωποι. Συμφωνώ απόλυτα. Αλλά ο τόπος είναι και αυτά που με αίμα και υδρότα οι γονείς μας, οι παππούδες μας έκτισαν εκεί τα σπίτια τους με κάθε πέτρα λαξευτίνα την κουβαλούν τα πέρατα του κάμπου για να χτίσουν τα σπίτια τους. Μέσα στα σπίτια εκείνα ζήσαμε και είναι οι αναμνήσεις μας, τις οποίες θα μπορούσαμε να μεταφέρουμε στα παιδιά μας. Τώρα χωρίς σπίτια, μόνο με ρήπια, ούτε πέτρες, ούτε ξύλα. Πώς μπορεί να μεταφέρουμε στα παιδιά μας το νόημα αυτής της συνέχισης της κουλτούρας μας και της παράδοσης μας? Φαντάζει πάρα πολύ δύσκολο. Καίγεται η καρδιά μου που τα λέω, γιατί ήμουν παρόν στην τελευταία κατεδάφιση των σπιτιών μας που έγιναν τελευταία και πραγματικά θλίβομαι για την όλη την κατάσταση. Εγώ θα εισηγούμουν εάν θα μπορούσε να μην πάει το θέμα μας σαν παράκληση των Μαρονιτών να μπει μέτρο οικοδόμησης εμπιστοσύνης οι Μαρονίτες να επιστρέψουν στα σπίτια. Να μπει σαν μέτρο οικοδόμησης εμπιστοσύνης της Κυπριακής Δημοκρατίας και να τονιστεί το συμφέρον τόσο της Κυπριακής Δημοκρατίας όσο και της τουρκοκυπριακής κοινότητας, να τονιστεί το συμφέρον ότι πρέπει αυτή η κοινότητα να αντιμετωπιστεί, γιατί δυστυχώς σβήνει μια ιστορία πολλών εκατοντάδων χρόνων. Με το θέμα του κυρίου Σπίρναμι, μπορείτε να...
In summary, Mr. Andreas, who comes from Somatos, briefly, Mr. Andreas
Mr. Andreas explains that he's from Kassapis. His parents were enclaved in the village and lived there under very difficult conditions, together with other people from that village, about 100 people. Eventually, they all died or left in the difficult conditions. The village stayed now only as a military camp by the Turkish army. And on top of everything, recently, most of the houses of the village have been demolished, and even if they were old and not in very good conditions, it breaks the heart of the people like Andreas, who was present when the houses were being demolished. Yes, and that means, unfortunately, he suggests that this should be not just as a measure of confidence between the two communities, but as a very important measure by the Cypriot government and by the Turkish Cypriot community, which is good for the whole of Cyprus because it preserves the identity of one historical community after many centuries of presence in this island. Just asking for your comments.
I fully empathize and understand this sentiment. I think in Cyprus, all of us, whether they are Maronite, Greek, Turkish, have such stories in our families. My family comes from Bologna. Our houses don't exist. My mother comes from Paphos. We went, the house has been turned into a parking lot. People are parking their cars. Where my childhood
unfortunately, this is a tragedy that we are trying to fix. Without a comprehensive solution, our job is much, much more difficult. That's why sometimes people criticize me for focusing on comprehensive settlement alone, instead of going for incremental approaches. I am saying we don't have time. People are dying. Communities are disappearing. Memories are fading. Time is not on our side. If we wait another 10 years for confidence to be rebuilt and these incremental measures to convince our leaders that the time has come, when they are ready, there won't be anything left to say. And what your example, I think, demonstrates the dangers of losing time. When I was the Minister of Foreign Affairs, I tried my best, to the best of my ability, to assist not only people from Assomatos, but all the Maronite community, because it breaks my heart as well when I visit those villages and I see the situation of the churches, the need for restoration, and I can feel the cultural heritage there and how attached you are to those areas. It breaks my heart as well, but what we can do is very limited under the current circumstances, and that's a reality.
So in case that there is no solution, what shall we do, at least for the Maronite community to survive, to give help to survive?
Of course, far from me to tell you what you should do, but it depends on what you mean by in case we don't have a solution. If what you mean is status quo, as things are right now, I am afraid things are not looking very good. I cannot give you false hopes. The way things are going is very clear. And as I have said in my speech, even Turkish Cypriots themselves are afraid whether we will be able to protect our identity and transfer it as we know it to our children. So let's focus on the comprehensive settlement and let's not talk about this non-solution scenario because it's really bad for all of us, I believe. And we have to exercise more pressure on both leadership to deliver a solution.
Thank you very much. Enjoyed your talks. A friendly disagreement Mr. Menelaus were sympathetic about the need of a comprehensive settlement. I do understand that without that we won't be able to actually create the institutional structures for a sustainable peace. I think it's also important to try and do justice to the community. Like you said, I think it's very important about the land, the community, the people, doing justice to people and communities, not just to the Greek Cypriot or the Turkish Cypriot community. It's important, yes, it's seeing not just two sides, and not just three sides, not just the Maronites. The policy brief that Yorgos Uzbekakis referred to, we refer to the Maronite villages, but also to the villages within the buffer zone. I don't know how many of you know that we have 4 villages within the buffer zone which are currently abandoned villages. 2 Greek Cypriots, 1 Turkish Cypriot, and 1 mixed village. What are we doing about that? About restoring those villages within the buffer zone. If we cannot do that, we tend to reach a comprehensive settlement, whereas we have the buffer zone, we have experiences of people living within the buffer zone, here for example, and we are not trying to do justice to communities. I fully agree that it's not a question of confidence building measures, it's also a question about doing justice. doing justice to community. We are waiting to do justice to the Greek Cypriot or the Turkish Cypriot community, and we are not looking at all specific communities, be it the Maronites, be it mixed communities within the buffer zone. Agios Georgios Soreas, a mixed village. Varisha, a Greek Cypriot village. Agios Nikolaos Soreas, a Greek Cypriot village. Petropani, a Turkish Cypriot village within the buffer zone, which is currently being used for animal husbandry. I mean, it's terrible to see that. So what are we doing to do justice to communities in parallel to trying to reach a conference? I think that is really at stake in trying to do justice, comprehensive justice, not justice to communities, but doing justice to specific communities. Thank you.
I agree with the point, yes. That is why we have endeavored and we have succeeded in the course of discussions, negotiations that have taken place to ensure that we will guarantee that in a solution to the Cyprus problem, that will be, I know you were speaking also about what can we do without a solution. Yes, I will come to that point as well, but within a solution to the Cyprus problem, there will be full guarantee of the rights that are provided for every citizen of Cyprus in the context of the European Union. And this also addresses one other comment that was made before and on which I have forgotten to comment, which is about the connection of the Maronite community and of other communities of the people of Cyprus in general with the land. How do we ensure that this is going to be a right that will be exercised in a united Cyprus? And that is an element that we have succeeded to guarantee, to include among what we have referred to before when we were mentioning the convergences that will be achieved. With regard to what do we do now, there have been steps in support of people who would want to relocate to their places of origin, and that is why we have people that are residing, some limited number of people that are residing in Kormakitis and also in the Kassapis. We do have communities that exist today and are inhabited. There is civilian activity in the buffer zone, like Atieno, like Pila, like Denia. And there are other communities whose residential area is outside the buffer zone, but there is other activity, farming, industrial, and also some limited residences established within the buffer zone. As far as we are concerned, we should do as much as possible, precisely within the context of what should govern our policy in relation to the buffer zone before resolution, which is to contribute towards a return to normal conditions, whilst being aware at the same time of the fact that this can be in the end fully accomplished if we overcome the current state of affairs and we move to an alternative situation where the current will be reversed and the dynamics will be towards a unified space and geography.
Well, frankly speaking, I don't think Turkey side will ever allow something to be developed, resettled within the buffer zone. For the Turkey side, that's a very sensitive issue, the status of the buffer zone. The approaches of both sides are quite different. The control has been given to United Nations, and United Nations recognize the Republic of Cyprus. They don't recognize. So from the Turkish perspective, any change to the status of the buffer zone is a danger. Therefore, I wish I could tell you to hear, but from my experience, I don't think one should have hopes that such measures will be taken within the buffer zone. But I'm fully in support of what we can do for the Maronite villages that are already in the north. Within military camps, out of military camps, in the way of restoration, resettlement, these to me sound more realistic projects rather than what was alluded to regarding the
Next question.
Generally speaking, confidence boosting measures when they sort of shift the focus from negotiations. That's something that is particularly favorable, but in this case, I think that there's potential for an easy win, something that will not be super complicated, and considering that it's not super complicated and will take energy away from the main negotiations, it can be pursued if there is political will on both sides.
Thank you very much for your speeches. I am a member of the parliament. I have been a member of the parliament for the last 3 years for Kyrenia constituency. So I was born in Kyrenia and I lived there until 1974. I would like a comment on something you said. You said there is apathy in both sides. I would like to assure you that there is no apathy in the Greek side, the Cypriot side. I meet daily with people coming from Kyrenia, and I am telling you that they still wait to go back to their homes. They are determined to go back to their homes. So there is no apathy. That's the first one. The second one, you let it be understood that it will be an only solution, a last solution for the Cypriot problem, as I understood. But this solution should be a solution which will be ensure the human rights for all the people, for Greek Cypriots, for Turkish Cypriots, for Maronites, for all the people. So that solution would be a very comprehensive solution. We cannot go for any solution. And I have a question about the Maronite community. There is a plan, the Cyprus government applied a relocation, resettlement plan, whatever you want to name it, according to which they're entitled to go back to their villages and live there on the way they like to live. So if those 40 people who remained there after the Turkish invasion, when they die, what happened to those people who visit their villages under this plan? Is this plan approved by your side?
Well, let's see. Regarding apathy, there is plenty of research. Maybe people from Kyrenia don't carry this apathy, but how many of them are there? The vast majority, unfortunately, suffering from this apathy. I did not see any mass demonstrations after the failure of Kamota asking it on both sides. Almost. Why did you come back to Cyprus without solving the Cyprus problem? Where were those people who were not apathetic? People just accepted what happened there and continued with their life. Was there any reaction? There was nothing. So apathy is unfortunately there. You have to remotivate people to put what I understand from lack of apathy is putting pressure
real pressure on the leaders to deliver a solution. It is right now, I can see it. Of course, I respect your views. Regarding, not just any solution, but a solution that respects rule of law, human rights. Madam, we created that under the auspices of the United Nations, under the observation of the European Union. And like we announced after the collapse of the Annan plan and everything, one of the prerequisites of the Cypriots and late Christofias was this has to be a Cypriot-owned, Cypriot-led process. No outside interference, wasn't it?
It's not. It's not regular.
It was. I was the negotiator on both occasions that we made progress. Not even a single line was dictated to us from outside. Everything we did, up until Grand Montana, we created our own. We didn't use material from the Annan plan? Yes, we did. Okay. Because Annan plan itself did not arrive from heavens on top of us. Years of body of work created by previous leaders was there. But after the collapse of the Annan plan, up until Grand Montana, all the convergence papers, every single line was written down by us, Cypriots, out of our own free will, and with consultations with experts, international lawyers, EU observers, to make sure that everything would respect human rights, rule of law, EU acquis. So be assured that what we created is fully in line with your criteria. Therefore, I think we are in agreement that a new attempt should protect that body of work. We must resume from where we left off. And we must focus first on the Guterres outline, those 6 main outstanding issues, sort it out, and then finish. My difference is this. We have to take precaution that if this time, for one reason or another, one side or the other misbehaves, we should not let it fail. We must have an insurance policy. And that insurance can only be with some kind of an arbitration and some kind of consequence. For me, that was the missing link. Now, and hopefully, once we are reunited and EU law applies everywhere, all our concerns regarding respect for our human rights, settlement rights, property rights will be dealt with. Of course, a war happened. Whether we like it or not, we cannot reinstate everything and turn back time as if none of that history happened. It happened. We didn't do it, but we have to live with the consequences and fix it to the extent that we can. So that's how it is.
One brief comment from my part as well on the issues that have been raised. First, the solution model that we are speaking about is a federal model. That is what is going to be the outcome if we get to the point where we will have an agreed upon solution. And the federation is going to comprise 2 constituent states, federal units, 2 areas to make it more clear, that will be administered by the respective community. A Greek Cypriot one and a Turkish Cypriot one. But the state is going to be one member of the European Union, of the United Nations, a single international personality with the competences given to it that are necessary for every state to be able to hold these characteristics of a single international personality with the prohibition of any form of partition or secession. Now, what is important, I believe, for all people who come from the territories that are currently in the north, and for those who, in the context of a solution, are going to be able to go back and reside in areas that will be under Turkish Cypriot administration, including Kyrenia, that I have to share with you because we would have to be realistic, pragmatic, and speak the truth. There will be a territory that is going to be under the Cypriot administration, and Kyrenia is going to be among that territory. What is important, however, for all of us to have in mind is that across the territory, on all the territory of the Federal Republic of Cyprus, all the citizens of the Republic of Cyprus, as for all Europeans everywhere in the European Union, there will be a guaranteed right to exercise all the rights to which a European citizen is entitled to reside, to exercise a profession, to undertake any economic activity, to possess property, and so on and so forth. There will be no restriction, no discrimination. And that is, I believe, the element which is providing us the necessary guarantee so that we can feel that within the context of a united Cyprus, the dynamics will be towards the direction of bringing the people, the society, the institutions together. And one other comment with regard to the aspect of whether a revived effort is going to be a last chance. My view with regard to this aspect is that in life and in history there are never last chances, there will always be a mistake, but we should at the same time be aware of the fact that naturally there are historic and political cycles that at some point are coming to an end, are being concluded. And when we are approaching such moments, and this current juncture that we are going through now might be a moment that possesses this kind of characteristics, bearing in mind also the wider geopolitical landscape, the possible rearrangements that might emerge. When we are faced with such situations, what we must constantly have in mind, in my view, is that the train of history is not going to stop and ask us if we are ready to work. We must be ready to work, we must be on board. And that is what we should have in mind, and that is why, in my view, a possible next attempt for a solution to the Cyprus problem, even though it might not be the last, should be approached as if it is going to be the last, in the sense that we should exhaust every room so that it will be successful.
What about the Maronite relocation plan?
The Maronite relocation plan that you have asked about, and the specific question was in relation to those that pass away.
If they pass away, if this plan will
successors. Yes. Well, they are still entitled to the property that they possess, and if they would want to relocate themselves, they are able to relocate.
There will no any problem posed by the other side.
Well, with regard to that, I am not in a position to give you a 100% guarantee, but as far as it had been, from the moment that it had been possible for a specific family that has the ownership of a specific property to relocate and to use the property, the conditions are much more favorable for that use of the property to be continued by the successors of the specific family.
But this is something that maybe our government will deal with. You have to deal with.
As far as we are concerned, there should be no obstacle for this to take place. But in the current situation, within the current context, this is not something that depends entirely on us. That's why I cannot tell you 100% that this is what's going to happen.
We are a bit late after schedule. I will accept 3 more questions, and be brief, please. From the Maronite village of Agia Marina, we have not had a speaker from Agia Marina, so the lady here is from Agia Marina.
We also have the experiment, well, I have to say that I feel very proud of the association It's always the level so high and it's always contributing. So thank you very much for this. And the club, of course. So thank you, Yorgo, for the pioneer work done. I take the issue of the national ethnic community, how important it is to establish a status and how protective that is. And I invite the community to analyze that, work on that. Mr. Musa is not here. Everybody who's interested to become a representative to work on this issue because it's very productive to the community, because it gives the framework to have all the measures corrected. Now, I am positive about the solution. I'm not so pessimistic, Mr. Nami. Hello, how are you? But I don't think it's going to come quickly. And I don't feel it's going to come from the top. It's coming from below. And it's not coming from the top. And the answer to your question, why it happened from the north? Why it didn't happen in 2004? Is because there is a problem, and that is nationalism, and the importance of nationalism in keeping the structure of some corrupted leadership. The corrupted economic status, the principal side, I don't know about the principal side, it has us a mortar nationalist, and without that it collapses. So they preserve it, okay? It's going to happen because it's coming from below. But can the Maronite community wait for that long? It cannot. So that's why it's important to have all the measures. The little measures that will support us and will keep us being a community until that very most productive, most supportive solution comes for us. So I invite you to help us in that. And I think the issue that then raised of the people returning and that status of Evangelistasi, it's so important, and we have to support it and we have to increase it. Now I speak here as a Ayamarina person. Ayamarina village is very active in what the whole of the community is doing, being a boundary community and helping overcome the borders. And Ayamarina is working a lot on that. But on the other hand, we are very disadvantaged that we have nothing. We have no village, our houses have been demolished, but we don't even have the land. And this is something that I invite the community and I invite everybody who can help to help Ayamarina get the land outside the town. It's only Maronite village that doesn't have the land. And I know there has been a decision by the authorities that can be in the technical side that the land of the Maronites belongs to them. So it's like a ripe apple, and we want to take that apple because if we would take the land outside the army camp, I tell you that my mother would be moving there in a caravan, and there will be part of that return. So I invite you for that help. Thank you very much.
One brief comment only in the interest of time, because we are set for today's event. In my view, and I have said it in my speech, there are fundamental aspects that have not been sufficiently addressed in past efforts, and that is the primary cause from what had gone wrong in the past. I respect other views, even though I do not agree and endorse them, and I must state that for the record, without denying that there might be some people among both communities, among all Cypriots, that might have the illusion, the false impression, that the current situation can be a model that in the long term is going to provide stability and security and ensure that there will be no instability. But I believe that the majority of the society understands that this is a possibility that we should avoid because it
I just want to say, you have many friends in the world, in the Maronite community. You have many friends, sympathizers, and we are trying to help. But we have our limits. That's why I'm saying, short of a settlement, what we can do to help you, you are saying that, please understand, is very limited. And I carried some titles, minister, negotiator. Even what I could do was very limited. And that's why I'm not a politician, and I don't have to be politically correct. And we are in a difficult situation. That's why I'm not a pessimist that we will never be able to solve the Cyprus problem. Cyprus problem will be solved. My problem is, are we going to be part of it?
Are we going to be here?
So, famous economist Keynes had said, when they told him, why are you trying to fix the economy? There is an invisible hand which fixes everything in the long run. And his answer was, in the long run, we will all be dead. So this is why I'm trying to impose a sense of urgency.
Okay, thank you. We are late, and there are people who still want to ask questions, but please make it as short as you can, okay? Questions and answers. So now I go to the First Lady of Agia Marina for a question.
Thank you, Antonis. Good evening to everyone. First of all, I want to congratulate Kormakitis Club for this gathering here, and the three speakers. It was a very interesting meeting here tonight. I do represent the Agia Marina, and I want to thanks a lot Mr. Nami. We visited him many times when he was the minister. He helped us a lot. We gained some more visits to Agia Marina. This is what we are doing. We are only visiting Agia Marina. It was one time, now we have 4 to 5 times. We are far away from what Kormakitis has, sure, far away from relocation, from the returning, and the only thing we didn't manage to do is to restore again some in the church, which is the only one standing there, because the houses are all demolished recently. We didn't manage to do this, and humanitarian thing, a toilet near the church. We didn't manage this. It is really a problem for all the people visiting Agia Marina. All people are not going because they want a toilet, even the priests, and we didn't manage to do this. For all the others, we are very far away. Thanks a lot, and for all the help for Mr. Rami. We know we met many times, so thank you for everything. We hope. Thank you.
Would you like to comment?
What can I say?
A question now from Ellie, because she has been asking from the beginning.
Είμαι από τον δεν μιλώ κανονικά, θα μιλήσω ελληνικά. Είμαι από τον Ασώματο. Στον Ασώματο είχαμε μείνει 200 άτομα και τα οποία ένας έφυγαν. Και ο Ασώματος ποτέ δεν δημιούργησε πρόβλημα σε κανένα. Και πραγματικά απορούμε ότι πρέπει οι αποφάσεις για τα μαρονίτικα χωριά όλα να είναι οι ίδιες, για όλα, να αφορούν όλα τα χωριά, όχι να αφορούν ένα χωριό, είτε για επανεγκατάσταση είτε για πολύ άλλο τίποτε θέμα. Θα σας παρακαλέσουμε πάρα πολύ όταν βγαίνουν αποφάσεις τα μαρονίτικα χωριά να βγαίνουν για όλα. Αν μπείτε όλοι στον Ασώματο μένει στρατός, στο στρατό μένουν μόνο 8 στρατιώτες νεαροί που τους φέρνουν από την Ευθεία και βγαίνουν πίσω, τα 6 μήνες. Δίπλα από τον Ασώματο είναι ο Κοντεμένος, είναι η Μίστου που έχουμε μεγάλα στρατόπεδα. Δεν χρειάζεται να μένουν αυτά για αυτά τα 5-6 στρατιωτάκια στον Ασώματο. Γιατί το μόνο πρόβλημα που δεν είναι ότι το σώματος έχει στρατό. Δεν έχει στρατό. Γι' αυτό να γίνει επανεγκατάσταση, να βγουν οι ίδιες αποφάσεις όπως είναι και για τον Κορμακίτη και για την Καρπάζο και για όλα τα πολιτικά χωριά να είναι ίδιες. Ελευθερία επανεγκατάσταση των κατοίκων τους πίσω. Με όλα τα δικαιώματα.
Very briefly, Elise from Asotos, and she says that the decisions for all the Maronite villages should be the same, and not only for one or two villages, and not for the others. And she also says that although there is Turkish army in Asotos, it's only 8 young soldiers who come from Turkey and then they go back. There are bigger camps in the nearby villages of Kontemenos or Mitu, and she is asking for the right of resettlement to be also given to Asotos. And this is a question I think that Mr. Nami has to comment.
It's my friend, he has to answer to
Like I said, it's very reasonable what they are saying. And what she was saying was very reasonable. But what I'm saying is the reality. Reality is there is an army, there are political difficulties, other difficulties. People like me are trying to help, but we are finding it extremely difficult. That's all I'm saying. And I wish we were successful in Pramotana. Right now we would be talking about very, very different things. So as long as, unfortunately, we are stuck with the Cyprus problem, what you are demanding, I'm sure every year it will be a little bit better, but I think it's going to be very, very smooth. Very smooth.
We have 2 last questions.